Read the psychological thriller that everyone's talking about. Beautiful Bad by Annie Ward is about a devoted wife, a loving husband, and a chilling murder that no one saw coming. With stunning twists and a propulsive plot, Beautiful Bad is a must-read. It's also available in audiobook format. Learn more now at beautifulbadbook.com. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 105 of the True Crime All the Time Unsolved podcast. I'm Mike Ferguson, and with me, as always, is my partner in true crime, Mike Gibson. Gibby, how are you?
I'm good, man. How about you?
I'm doing great.
Yeah?
I am fired up to talk about some true crime tonight.
Yeah, me too.
We just got done recording what I think is a very good episode for TCAT on Peter Manuel.
Yeah, it was really good, man.
Infamous Scottish serial killer.
Scottish?
I think back before they even called people serial killers, he was one of Scotland's worst.
He was a haggis killer.
And we talked about haggis quite a bit.
We did talk about haggis.
There was some haggis talk.
Yes, there was.
All right, Gibbs, we have new patrons. We got to give some Patreon shout outs.
I like new Patreon shout outs.
We had R. Smith.
Hey, R. Smith.
Ashley Janney.
Hey, Ashley.
Kyra Tomchek.
Really? Kumchuk.
That wasn't even close. You said Komchuk.
It's like,
I said Tomchek.
I wonder if he, like, it's part of,
and it's a woman, too. So
it's like she's part of Star Trek.
Sam Perejko jumped up to our highest level.
Thank you, Sam.
Whitney Blair.
Hey, Whitney.
Carol Ard.
Carol?
Mick Wisen.
Hey, Mick.
Kevin Harrison.
Hey, Kevin.
Faith Sadowski.
Hey, Faith.
St. Christopher Rommel.
That was like the holy
noise. Samantha Height.
Hey, Samantha.
Margaret Moore.
Hey, Margaret.
Heather Stein.
Hey, thanks, Heather.
Hella Nyland.
Hey, Helen.
Hella.
Hey, Hella. Hey, H.
Jennifer Justice.
Hey, JJ.
Rachel Chilton.
Hey, Rachel.
Carrie.
Carrie.
Sharon Langone.
My Sharona.
I've probably not said either one of those correctly, but I like that.
Makes me think of that song, My Sharona.
I like My Sharona.
Yeah.
By who?
Cheap Trick?
No.
I forget.
The Knack.
The Knack. There you go.
Amber Hayther.
Hey, Amber.
Ashley Renee jumped up to our highest level.
Ashley Renee.
Cynthia Preby.
Preby.
John Barbazette.
Hey, Babazette.
And Kiki K.
Kiki.
Or Nikki K, if I wrote it down
wrong.
Or
Nikki K. One of the two?
One of the two. Then we go back into the vault, Gibbs.
Okay.
This week we selected Diana Ward.
Hey, Diana.
Been with us a long time Patreon supporter.
She has.
And we appreciate all the new support, the continued support. We had some great support on PayPal as well.
Okay.
Molly Hildebrandt.
Hey, Molly.
Heather Allen.
Hey, Heather.
Phyllis Ekoff.
Ekoff.
And Raven Marks.
Hey, Raven.
Speaking of Patreon, next week we have a Patreon-only episode coming out. So now's a great time to sign up.
Yeah.
If you've been thinking about it,
just do it.
Get some extra episodes, extra content every week. All right, Gibbs, are you ready to get into this True Crime All Time Unsolved episode?
I'm ready.
I like it when you say you're ready. I'm not sure what my comeback would be if you said, nope, I'm out of here. I'm tired of your, you know what?
F this, man, I'm out.
So we're talking about the Bakersfield 3.
Yeah.
And we got a lot of positive feedback on the case that we did last week.
We did.
Jennifer Kesse.
Yeah.
That's a real mysterious case. You know, a lot of people, they want to see that one solved because it's just that mystery that's hanging out. I think this one is in that vein. This is a very mysterious true crime mystery.
Yeah. I remember when we, last week when I was researching that one, I was running down every rabbit hole and just pulled in thinking that's probably what happened. No. I think this is probably what happened.
Right. And then you get some other information and you're like, oh, well, that couldn't have happened. Maybe it was this.
Yeah, exactly.
So the Bakersfield 3, this is a case that obviously, as the name implies, took place in Bakersfield, California. And it's 3 people who were friends who disappeared or were murdered within a month of each other. So we're talking about Baylee Despot, Micah Holsonbake, and James Kulstad. All 3 came from good families, loving families. All 3 of these individuals grew up in middle-class neighborhoods. So we'll start out talking about Baylee. Baylee Cheyenne Despot was born on June 3rd, 1997. At the time of her disappearance, she was 5'7", 110 pounds. She had green eyes, brown hair. She had 2 tattoos, one on her left wrist, which was a rose, and one on her right arm, which was a tattoo of flowers.
Yeah.
Baylee was last seen wearing black leggings, a green shirt, and black shoes. And like we mentioned, she came from a good family. She had a good childhood, was raised up in a nice neighborhood. She graduated high school. After high school, she went on to college for a little while, but she stopped, like a lot of us do.
Sure.
I ran into that myself at a point outside of high school.
As well as did I.
But she really wanted to go back. She had dreams of finishing college. She also had a dream of joining the Air Force.
Yeah. But she ended up not going back. So then her dreams kind of shifted from that to wanting to be a flight attendant. But even that dream got placed on hold when Baylee got married.
But this is a marriage that did not last long. It ended in 2017. And it really was this divorce, the ending of her marriage, that I think Gibbs kind of sent her life in a downward spiral.
Yeah, she would start running with a new crowd of friends. And that crowd of friends would get her into some drug use.
So I think the key is she's heading down a bad path, right? Got some new friends. Those friends are going to get her into using drugs. She got arrested in July of 2017 for drunken, disorderly conduct. And this happened in front of one of her other friends' houses. It also happens to be one of the individuals that is involved in this case.
Yeah.
Micah Holsonbake. So it was in front of his house. Baylee was charged with a misdemeanor, but it was dismissed. After this happened, Baylee started a new relationship, but it wasn't good. It was toxic. It was very abusive. I mean, to the point, Gibbs, that she had to get a domestic violence restraining order against this new boyfriend not long after they started dating. That's pretty rough. You know, it's not going to be a good relationship when you're in the quote unquote honeymoon phase of a relationship and you have to go to the authorities and take out a restraining order.
Not good at all. But this is how her whole life is going right now. It's just one bad event after another.
It's one bad event after another. I grant you that. How much of it is tied to decision making? I think you have to say some of it is, right? You start hanging out with people that are doing drugs.
And that's a decision.
That's a decision that she made.
Yeah.
And things start to spiral out of control. And it's less than 3 weeks after she took out the restraining order against this new boyfriend that something else really bad, this is really bad, happened to Baylee. So she went to her mother and confided in her mother that she was gang raped at an apartment complex after someone put some type of drug into her drink. This is horrific. And it added to what was already as we mentioned, a downward spiral in her life.
It really did.
She had a really hard time coping with this, as would anyone. Her mom tried to get her some counseling to deal with the sexual assault, but it was extremely tough for Baylee, no doubt.
Well, her drug use increased. most likely to deal with all the pain, the internal pain, probably the anxiety too that she had from all those events.
And we mentioned this kind of wild crowd that Baylee was running with in September 2017. She started going out frequently. Her mom and her sister have said that there were just random people, mostly men, that showed up at the house, would pick up Baylee, and the next thing they knew, she would be gone for days at a time.
And to the point that sometimes she would call home to her mom and say, "Mom, I don't even know where I'm at." And she'd be upset, crying, that she just wanted to get back home. But then she would repeat the cycle.
Well, that's drugs. You feel bad I feel bad for her, but I feel bad for the family.
Sure.
In that situation. If you ever watch any of those shows like Intervention or any of those, man, what the family goes through to try to help out their loved ones, oftentimes doing too much, enabling them to keep doing the drugs, but you don't want to let your child down.
Right.
It's a very tough situation for a parent.
I remember watching one where the mom would go and buy the drugs to give to her daughter just to not lose contact with her daughter.
Yeah, just to know where she was so she'd be able to see her.
Yeah,
it's a tough situation.
But, Baylee would come back from these extended stays and she would tell her mom some bizarre stories sometimes.
Well, and I said this is tough on the parents. This was extremely tough on Baylee's sister as well. She got to the point where it was too much for her. This constant drama, she decided that she had to move away, move out of the house. But before she did, she told Baylee, be careful who you hang out with and who you're running your mouth to. She said, these drug people aren't your friends, and one day they just might kill you.
Yeah, I mean, this was a pretty rough crowd. So I think she was spot on telling her sister this, but would her sister heed the warning?
By December of that year, 2017, Baylee had a new boyfriend, and she was out with him one night. They were pulled over by police. Baylee's boyfriend was driving, and as the police walked up to the car, they noticed a gun sitting in the center console of the car. So they ended up searching the vehicle, and they found 4 more loaded guns.
That's never good.
So that's 5 loaded guns you have in the car.
Yeah.
One was an AR-15 rifle. Another was a 9mm rifle. And then there were 2 more handguns that they found. It was noted in the officer's report that neither of the rifles had any identifying marks.
Sounds like maybe stolen.
That's not good. That is not good at all. I mean, number one, it's not good to be riding around with 5 loaded guns unless you are allowed to by law. I'll put it that way. You're never going to be allowed as a private citizen to ride around with a gun that has no serial number, has no identifying marks.
Yeah.
That's not going to fly anywhere.
It's not going to happen.
So this new boyfriend of Baylee's was a man by the name of Matthew Queen. And during this police stop, he wouldn't say a word to the police. For one thing, Gibbs, he was a convicted felon, which automatically prohibited him from owning a firearm. There's no way he would be allowed to carry a firearm. You could never get a concealed carry license, nothing. You shouldn't even have one in your house. So because of that, he was charged with some felonies, out of this whole stop and the fact that they found these guns. Baylee was charged too, but she made a deal with prosecutors. She pleaded no contest to misdemeanor charges of carrying a loaded firearm and carrying a concealed weapon in a vehicle. So because of her plea, she received just a sentence of 3 years probation. She's not going to do any time.
Just no more carrying illegal guns or guns, period.
But to me, it's what happens after this traffic stop where everything goes down that I find very strange, because Baylee Despot ends up moving in with this Matthew Queen guy. And she really, at this point, starts to drift away from her family. I guess I find it strange because you would think, having just gone through that experience, you might want to get away from this guy.
Yeah.
He might be bad news. This is not what I need in my life, but that's not the way it's handled.
So either she was just madly in love, or there could have been some fear reasons behind it.
Or, there's definitely some type of circumstance for sure. And I do think the other thing that is strange about this relationship is Matthew Queen is twice Baylee's age. And it's not that relationships like that can't work. I think it's just something else added on to what appears from the outside to be a strange / dysfunctional relationship.
Yeah. I think some people would think that maybe he was manipulating, taking advantage of somebody much younger.
All right, now let's talk about Micah Holsonbake. He was born on May 9th, 1983. And when you hear his friends and family talk, they say that, this was an intelligent kid. Growing up, he was the type of kid that was into statistics and figures and
TPS reports at that young age. He was into the debate team, but he also played football. He was kind of a well-rounded kid is what I got from the research. Later on, as he got older, he developed an interest in forensics. Kind of a true crime kind of thing.
Maybe.
Yeah.
He graduated from high school and then went on to Harding University. But a year later, he joined the Navy and would eventually receive a medical discharge because of some issues with his throat. And it would be these issues that Micah had with his throat that I think to a large extent caused his own spiral. But after the Navy, he got back home to Bakersfield and he started a family. He started a career at a local bank. He started out as a teller, eventually got his license to be a broker, and became a financial advisor. He loved his job, and he worked very hard. He worked long hours. His family described him as a loving, caring man. He was at one end of the spectrum, extremely loyal, and at the other end, he could be the life of the party.
Yeah. Well, I think he was successful, making some money, enjoyed life overall, and probably one of those guys that you were always happy to run into.
But like I said, there's going to be a spiral. And Micah Holsonbake would change. His family started to notice the changes in him. He and his wife separated in what was reported to be a very difficult separation. And this all goes back to this throat pain that got him discharged from the Navy. Over the years, he had to have several surgeries. It was a real issue, and the pain was said to have been unbearable. And it's because of that Micah Holsonbake got addicted to pain pills, narcotics. And that's a story, Gibbs, that we're hearing more and more of.
We really do.
It's the legal prescribed pain pills causing an addiction that then are at some point cut off.
Yeah.
Because the doctors say you don't need these anymore.
Right. No more. And you know what? Or the insurance cuts them off. And even some of these new laws have restrictions out there.
But I think the bottom line is people at a certain point get cut off from their pain pills. But by that point, they're addicted.
Yeah.
So in a lot of cases, they turn to illegal street drugs, right, to get the same type of high that they can no longer get because they can't get a hold of their quote unquote legal prescribed medication.
Right. And then the addiction gets worse.
And that's what happened in the case of Micah Holsonbake. Things started to get very bad. He started to act paranoid. He began telling his family that someone was following him and he was afraid of whoever it was, this guy or this group of people. And it would eventually come out that Micah Holsonbake was getting his drugs from this group of people. And it was this group that was making him, along with some other drug users, essentially work in an illegal gun operation. And he told his family that he couldn't walk away because this group of people said they would not only hurt him, but they would hurt his family as well.
Yeah, I mean, this was really a bad group. I mean, you think about it, they're dealing drugs, they're dealing with illegal weapons, and they were even into the illegal sex trade.
Let's hear from Micah's mother.
He talked a lot about being concerned that people were going to hurt him. He was afraid, felt like he needed to defend himself.
So you can hear her talk about it, how scared Micah was for his life. And now let's talk about the third victim in this case, and that's James Kulstad. James was born on August 9th, 1979. He graduated from West High School in 1998. James was a big-time surfer dude. He moved to La Jolla, California, to be closer to the surf.
That's a nice area too, man.
It is a nice area.
Yeah.
He even opened his own skateboard shop. You know, the one thing about James is he was an entrepreneur. He was always coming up with these ideas to make money.
Yeah, even when his daughter was first born, he came up with this, and he patented it. It was called Less Mess Bibs. So he had that out there. I'm guessing as a dad, he said, man, I'm tired of doing this. Every time I feed my kid, I got a better idea with bibs. And he came up with one. And, you know, a lot of surfers also like to skateboard. So he came up with a new type of skateboard called torch skateboard trucks. And he patented that as well.
So we mentioned that James loved the water. He loved to surf. Friends and family said that he also liked to play golf. He was into fashion.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that collected gym shoes like you wouldn't believe. You know, I know a few guys like that where they have all the brand new Nikes that come out.
And we're not talking about $15 Walmart sneakers. We're talking about the Jordans, the Carmelos, the ones that come out, they're $150, $200. And those are the ones that actually go up in price.
Yeah.
If you keep them nice and
buy them in multiple colors.
Yeah.
You know, maybe wear them once.
But on top of that, people said that he was a really good cook. Like he had some serious culinary skills. The other thing about James Kulstad is he liked to gamble. He liked the thrill and the excitement of table games.
Yeah.
He loved to go to Vegas, so much so that people called him Joe Vegas.
Hey, you got to be pretty good to be called Joe Vegas. So he's probably pretty good at those tables, I'm thinking.
Probably. I mean, I guess you could just go and lose a lot of money and be called Joe Vegas.
Let's go with that. He won a lot.
Yeah, let's go with that.
Yeah.
Well, I will say people liked James Kulstad because, you know, according to friends and family, he had a heart of gold. This is a guy that would help anyone that was in need. And he was a hell of a salesman, according to everybody that knew him. If he got the chance to talk to you, he was more likely than not going to be able to sell you something.
Yeah, and his daughter would say that he had one of those smiles that would light up a room. And if you saw him and he smiled at you, you couldn't help but smile back. One of those type of smiles.
So I think the key here is that James Kulstad, he was a good guy.
Yeah.
He was a guy that a lot of people liked to be around, but he began doing street drugs. And it came after a battle with severe pain that came from a car accident. So again, like we talked about with Micah Holsonbake, James started taking prescription meds for this pain that came as a result of a car accident, but that at a certain point, he was no longer able to get through a prescription, and he turned to heroin. And obviously, this was years after what we just talked about, right? By the time that he got into heroin and his life began to spiral, his daughter was an adult. She was 18 years old. And she tried to help her dad get off the drugs. I mean, when you hear her talk, it's heartbreaking, Gibbs, because she's basically saying, here's the man that raised me who told me as a child, don't ever do drugs. He warned her about doing drugs, but then later on in life himself fell into, using them, and she's trying to get him off of using these drugs.
Yeah, because this was her everything. Her dad was everything to her.
Well, because one thing that we didn't talk about that we probably should was her mother died in a car accident when she was a child. So really her dad was what she had.
Offer valid on standard browsers, US only.
When I heard about Date My Age, I thought, really? But there I was in my empty, quiet house, my laptop on the kitchen counter, and I typed in my name. Looking for a man between the ages of 40 to 60? Sure, why not?
Date My Age is different. With verified profiles, you can feel safe and secure to explore meaningful connections with interesting and mature singles.
Date My Age made it really easy. I could join and view online profiles for free. All of a sudden, my empty house wasn't so quiet anymore. I got so much attention, it just made me feel seen and alive. Date My Age helped me start a totally new chapter in my life.
Find a friend, a lover, a partner at Date My Age. Get 60% off when you join at datemyage.com today. That's datemyage.com to connect with thousands of singles worldwide. datemyage.com.
But as people talked in glowing terms about James back in the time frame before he got on drugs, in the time frame when he was doing drugs, they basically said the exact opposite. They said that he wasn't a nice guy. He was mean. He did a lot of things that he wouldn't have been proud of. And that's what drugs will do to you.
Sure. You're trying to find a way to make money to pay for what you need to get.
All right, Gibbs, let's take a minute to talk about the Real Real. Listen, anyone can own iconic luxury items at unreal values with the Real Real. They are the leading reseller of authenticated luxury from top designers. We're talking Louis Vuitton, Gucci, Rolex, Cartier, and hundreds more at up to 90% off retail. They get new items in every day that are authenticated by their team of experts. And I've said before, I love to browse the Tag Heuer watches. My wife is looking at some high dollar purses. It's a fun place to browse, that's for sure. But it's not just about shopping online. You can do that, but you can also consign your own items to sell. New customers receive an automatic $25 off at checkout. So shop in store, online, or download the app and get 20% off select items with the promo code REAL. That's therealreal.com, promo code REAL, REAL, for 20% off select items. So now we need to bring everything full circle, right? We've talked about Baylee, we've talked about Micah, we've talked about James, we've talked about their downward spirals into street drugs. And it was during this time that the three of them became friends. First, it was Micah and James. And then later on, Baylee became friends with the two of them. But it was a friendship born out of this connection they had with drugs and the people who they were getting the drugs from. It was late March of 2018. This is not a very old case, right? In the standard Gibbs of some of the unsolved cases that we do, this is pretty fresh. But late March 2018 is the last time that Micah Holsonbake was seen alive. It was March 23rd, to be exact, when Micah was last seen by an extended family member. He was crossing the intersection of Mount Vernon Avenue and Flower Street near Kern Medical. Since that time, there have been stories from people and sightings all over the state of California. As police are investigating Micah as a missing person, I think, Gibbs, that they start to believe that since he was running with a rough crowd that was most likely involved in illegal activities,
right,
he went through a very tough separation with his wife, that maybe all of that culminated in Micah Holsonbake wanting to get out of town.
And maybe part of the reason they felt that way is because they know just days before his mom picked him up and one of his friends, they went over to a couple stores, and at one of the stores they bought the disposable phones.
Like a burner?
Like a burner.
Yeah.
And during that trip, he asked his mom if this friend could stay at their house for a couple of days, and she said no. That's the last time she saw her son, when she dropped him off near a dumpster by a commercial building, and they walked away.
Then just 2 weeks after Micah went missing, this is on April 8th, James Kulstad went to a house party at the home of a chiropractor, a guy named Dr. Bajwa, but I don't think he was going there to party. Everything that's come out indicates that James was going to Dr. Bajwa's house to collect money as part of some of these illegal operations that he was involved in. But the doctor knew that James was coming. They had, I believe, Gibbs talked on the phone. And my understanding is the doctor told James, hey, you better not come up here. I've got my guys. They'll be here. And something bad's going to happen if you come. But James came anyway. So James knew that he was not welcome at this doctor's house, but he came anyway. When he got there, I think pretty quickly he realized that there was about to be trouble. And as he started to leave, someone opened fire on him while he was inside his car and killed him. The shooter has never been identified, but James had his own group of guys with him in the car that night. None of them were killed, but they were all people that had extensive rap sheets. They were known by police to be some pretty rough characters. Even James's family has come out and said, you know what, they didn't know any of these people, but they knew that they were scary individuals. And then you talk about this chiropractor, Dr. Bajwa. Obviously, he was into some things, right, Gibbs?
Yeah, to have that type of activity going on at his house.
Yeah, he was into some things. He later agreed to surrender his chiropractic license after some convictions on drug and gun charges. But we haven't heard a whole lot from the doctor because, as you've said many times, his attorney has advised him not to comment the same way you would do if you were in a situation. You'd clam up.
Absolutely.
I know you would.
First thing my attorney tells me, don't speak. I say, well, I don't speak that much anyway.
Then on April 25th, it's still 2018. This is about a month after Micah has gone missing, 2 weeks after James has been shot and killed. All of a sudden, no one can find Baylee Despot. Her family's worried. They fear that something is really wrong. I think for one thing, the family knew that Baylee was friends with Micah. They knew Micah had disappeared. I think they were worried just based on that alone and the fact that, you know, they don't know where she is. Now, later on, they're going to find out that she was also friends with James Kulstad, and they're going to find out that he was murdered. So, you know, the fear has to ratchet up even more at that point.
Yeah. And the way that the family knew that Micah and Baylee knew each other was because Micah was trying to help Baylee get out of this situation. He was doing that nice guy thing that he was well known for. You know, he wanted to do the right thing. He was trying to get her out of the drugs, the illegal guns, and just get her to a better situation and away from these individuals that they've been hanging around, which were bad people that had rap sheets, that were bad influences.
Now we come back around to Matthew Queen. He has said that he last saw Baylee in April before she went missing in a neighborhood near Palm Avenue and Renfro Road. The thing about Queen is he really hasn't talked much in the media. You know, he hasn't responded to a lot of media requests. The only thing that he's really come out and said is that he believes Baylee ran away, and he has talked about the fact that her mother doesn't like him, has never liked him, and thinks that he's the bad guy. And I think most of this has come through his Facebook posts. But he does confirm that he knew Micah Holsonbake. Let's hear a clip from Baylee's mom.
Supposedly that's where he last saw her. I don't think it is. I think the last place was at his house.
So I definitely want to talk about Cheryl Holsonbake for a minute, Micah's mom. You know, in the beginning, Gibbs, when Micah disappeared, it was a single disappearance, right? That's what everybody would have thought. But then in short order, James is killed. Baylee goes missing. All three of these people are connected to one another. So what you have is Micah's mom now realizing at a certain point that her son's disappearance is not a one-off situation. And she's been quoted as saying it was very obvious that this was not a coincidence. I'm not saying the same person necessarily was involved with all three of them, but the groups of people that were around each of them, they all knew. I mean, they know. People out there know. That's her quote. What is she saying? Micah, James, and Baylee were all hanging out with the same people. And they were rough people.
Yeah, rough crowd.
Micah's mom is saying there's somebody in that rough crowd, probably more than one somebody's, that knows exactly what happened to all three of them.
Look, when you're selling drugs, when you are handling illegal guns and messing around with the sex trade, you're going to have bad people in that organization. And you're going to have people that are enforcers, people that have to do the dirty work, people have to collect when people don't pay, people that go out and get rid of problems.
I was going to say, I'd take it a step further and just come out and say, you're going to have killers.
Absolutely. Yeah.
An organization like that, oftentimes, they kill people when they feel they need to.
If they think you're going to talk, you're gone. If they need to intimidate somebody by killing them in front of others to get others to do what they want, they'll do that.
And to me, that's the big question in this case. Why? What was it about these three individuals, especially I think when you talk about Micah and Baylee, what was it that they either did or knew that caused someone to want to make them disappear?
Yeah.
It was in August of last year, 2018, that a severed arm was found in a duffel bag in the Kern River. Now, it took them a while, several months, but eventually authorities matched the arm to Micah through DNA. And you know his family was heartbroken. I'm sure up until that point, they were holding out hope that he was alive somewhere. And now they're wondering, where's the rest of his body? Micah's dad has been quoted as saying, you know, it's just hard. I actually don't even know how to put it in words to hope that the worst is true. He went on to say that, you know, they thought that if they identified Micah and knew for certain that he was gone, it would change the way that they felt. They would somehow feel better. But he said they don't. They don't feel better. They just feel different. You know, his dad said, okay, now we know for sure he's not alive, but now they're dealing with the what have they done to my son question. Who did it? What did they do? What happened? So after the identification of Micah, that left Baylee Despot as the only person in what is considered the Bakersfield 3 to still be missing. And her family is just hoping for some information. You know, whether it's this is where Baylee is, alive, or she's not alive, but here are her bones, here's what's left of her. They just want some information.
Yeah, and I think some of the thought process to what may have happened is that either one, they're using her in the sex trade, or they murdered her because she most likely knew what happened to Micah and they didn't want anybody talking about it. And so it's easy for them just to go ahead and take care of the problem with their enforcer. So I think those are probably the two
most widely accepted theories.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Most people think it's one of some variation of those two.
Of those, exactly.
The Bakersfield Police Department, they've come out and said there are some commonalities in the three cases. Things like witnesses, location, evidence. But even though they share some things, all three, the police have not come out and said that they're convinced that all three are connected. The Bakersfield Police Department has also come out and said that this case, meaning the Bakersfield 3, has a very high priority in their office. It's something that they're working on every single day. And it's something that they've said they'll continue working around the clock.
And this is why I think it will be solved eventually.
I do too. I think because, first of all, it's very recent. You know, as far as unsolved cases, this is not a 30, 40-year-old unsolved case.
Right.
This happened very recently.
It was really fresh.
Now, in January of 2019, so we're literally talking, 2 months ago, Dr. Phil had on his show a former FBI profiler named Candace DeLong. She believes that the person that killed Micah Holsonbake was also involved in the disappearance of Baylee Despot. And then there was another person connected to that person that shot James Kulstad. So we're talking about two different people with a connection. But she emphasized the fact that there's a connection between the Bakersfield 3, right? They ran in the same circles. They knew some of the parties that were involved in the criminal behavior, the gun running, illegal gun sales, drug sales. And DeLong said, the drug world is very volatile. It's a violent world where disputes are frequently settled with a bullet or worse. And I think that's what we said earlier, right? These types of organizations, Gibbs, they don't hesitate sometimes.
No, they don't.
To solve a problem with violence. DeLong also touched on Micah Holsonbake's reported mental health issues and said that, those could have made him a target for the rough crowd that he was hanging out with. And her theory is that Baylee Despot likely knew who killed Micah, and that put a target onto her. It's kind of the same thing that you and I have been saying. It's what a lot of people think, but this is an ex-FBI profiler with, credentials and coming out and saying it means something. And she did come out with a I guess what you'd call a mini profile. She said that the person that killed Holsonbake and made Despot disappear was most likely a white male between the ages of 35 and 40, lives with a woman, has children. He's a violent person, and people around him know that he's a violent person. He's a scary guy. But she said he's also smart and dangerous. He probably drives a macho car, but when the police arrest him, he would be wearing jeans and a t-shirt. DeLong went on to say that she thinks this guy's probably pretty scared right now because of all the attention. Right?
Yes.
People are talking about him potentially on the Dr. Phil show. She thought because of that, he may even relocate.
Well, with all, that's a large audience.
Oh, he's got a large audience, no doubt.
When you have the resources behind it too, eventually, we said it, this is one we both feel probably will be solved.
I think it will. It's right now super mysterious.
Yes.
Because of the connection of the three, their connection to illegal activities. So you start to play out those scenarios that you think about when you think about illegal operation. getting rid of somebody because they know something that you don't want them to ever reveal to someone else. In this case, it could be that Micah found something out. He was murdered.
Mm-hmm.
It could be that Baylee found out what happened to Micah, and then they had to take care of her.
Yeah, so
lack of a better word.
Unless this guy's going to wipe out his whole group, so there's nothing that can never trace it back to him, he's probably going to get caught.
I kind of look at the thing with James in a little bit different light, just because he was in the act of trying to collect money around an illegal activity from a person that didn't want to give that money up,
right?
Was also into illegal activity and had some muscle behind him. So, but I don't know. I could be totally wrong.
Yeah, you don't know if it was more of a turf war kind of a deal.
But that's it. That's the case of the Bakersfield 3. I do think this is one that I don't know how long it'll take, but we'll get more information.
Yeah. It's just sad. 3 really good people, and beautiful families, and it just bad circumstances led them down a really bad road.
Right. And I think it all goes back to drugs. And we talked about it. There's the prescription drug thing is real.
Yeah.
People getting hooked on that. It's kind of the gateway. Then that is taken away from them. They're not strong enough to walk away from it altogether.
Yep.
So what they do is go find an alternative that is illegal.
Yeah. Get some
heroin, whatever it is, to try to get that same feeling. But it definitely leads people down, like you said, a very bad path.
Very bad. Yep.
All right. We got some voicemails.
Let's hear 'em.
Check those out.
Hi, Mike and Gibby. This is Kara Lee calling from Fort Worth, Texas. I actually heard about y'all's podcast because I love true crime stuff, and I was just looking at different podcasts on the iTunes thing, and then me and my dad took a lot of different road trips because I was thinking about transferring, and he would drive all over the different places I was looking at for like a mini college road trip kind of thing, and I kind of turned him on to y'all's podcast, and he loves it now, and we got my mom obsessed with it, and now we're all obsessed with it, and we all talk about the different episodes we hear, and we all love literally any time Gibby says anything ever, we just die. It's just so good. Also, Gibby followed me on Instagram, so that's pretty dope. At first, I thought it might be a catfish, but then I was like, no offense, because I was like, who's gonna try and impersonate Gibby? I love you, but of all people, that's just funny. But I really do love y'all, and I appreciate everything you guys do. Y'all work so hard. You work hard. I love y'all. Have a great day. Be safe and keep your own time ticking. Bye.
Well, there was a lot in that one.
There was. What do they say about a family that podcast together?
Well, that's what I was going to say. I think you and I have mentioned it before, but a family that listens to true crime all the time, or true crime all the time unsolved together, stays together.
Yeah, and safe. You
and
stay
is
safe together.
Because they keep their head on a swivel.
That's right. They're all looking at different directions at all times.
But we appreciate that.
We do. That was awesome.
Hi, Gibby and Fergie. My name is Nikki. I am from Village, Pennsylvania. I actually had a suggestion for your Unsolved. I actually have a cousin who disappeared, I believe it was 1995. His name is Jackie J.D. Phillips. He disappeared in Big Bear, and it has never been solved, and there has been suspects, so I don't know. I think it would be a cool case for you guys to look into. I'd like to know more about it. So, anyways, hope you guys are having a great day, and thank you so much, and I love your podcast.
All right. Thank you very much. We appreciate that.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So we'll take a look at that. I will be honest, and Gibbs, you know this as well as anyone. Some of these cases that we start to look into, there just isn't enough out there.
Yeah.
It's sad because, why does, Joe Smith get all this attention and all this media coverage, but then Joe Rogers gets hardly any?
I know.
And
And
we
see it
can't
all the
answer
time.
that question, but it's real. It definitely happens.
Hey, Mike and Gibby. I just was listening to one of the new True Crime All the Time Unsolved episodes and noticed that you guys were talking about Jennifer Aniston versus Jennifer Lawrence, which is my name, Jennifer Lawrence. And you said you like Jennifer Aniston more than you liked Jennifer Lawrence. So I just have to give you guys a hard time because, frankly, I think that's kind of rude. And you guys really did kind of hurt my feelings there a little bit. So I guess I'll still try to see you guys when I go down to CrimeCon. But anyways, love you guys. Enjoying the episodes as always. And keep your own time ticking.
Well, when we talk about the real Jennifer Lawrence,
now you're saying, I was going to say, you're saying she's not the real Jennifer?
No. I'm saying her. You know, of course you're far above and better than Jennifer Aniston.
I wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah.
But I do remember that conversation.
I don't know what you're talking about. I plead the fifth.
You don't remember it? I remember it very clearly.
Yeah.
I am a Jennifer Aniston fan, and I will stand by that. But when it comes to our listeners,
absolutely,
I'm a Jennifer Lawrence fan.
As am I.
Hi, Mike and Gibby. My name is Lindsay. I'm calling from Canada. I'm just calling to let you guys know that you guys do an amazing job. I've been a listener for at least a few weeks, and I've binged all of the episodes. I just want to say congratulations, and I hope you keep up the great work. Kind of funny that my husband and I were lying in bed last night on Valentine's Day, and we just kept talking about murder mysteries and true crime, and that was our Valentine's Day, so it's kind of funny. I hope you have a great day and keep your own time ticking.
Hey, baby, we're going to have a romantic night tonight.
Let's talk about true crime.
Let's talk about true crime.
I actually thought that was going in a much different direction.
I know. I was getting ready to cue the music. The bow, bow, bow.
Bow, chicka, bow, wow.
She makes a decision. She goes with it. She binged them all within 2 weeks.
Well, and that's saying something. Now, 2 years ago, when somebody said, hey, I just binged all your episodes in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay, I get that. But we have a lot of episodes now.
That's a lot to binge.
To fire them up and get through them in 2 weeks, that is a serious binge.
That's a lot of Mike and Gibby.
But we love it, and we appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right, you ready to get out of here?
Sure.
All right.
I got that Arby's sandwich waiting.
All right, everyone. That is it for another episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved. So for Mike
and Gibby,
stay safe and keep your own time ticking. Hey, TCAT listeners, don't forget about the book Beautiful Bad by Annie Ward, the psychological thriller that everyone is talking about. There's two sides to every story and every person. This is a book with some stunning twists, and the plot will have you wanting to keep turning page after page. So go out, read Beautiful Bad today. It's also available in audiobook. You can learn more at beautifulbadbook.com.